Hey, what's up, y'all? So I thought I'd react to this Love Who video. I watch his channel here and there, on and off. He's pretty legit. Most of the stuff's pretty much all his stuff I heard so far is pretty legit. Y'all make sure y'all go check him out. It used to be called Love Lou, but she gave her channel away too. I think this guy's an INTP. She gave her channel away too. So um, this is an interesting video. I watched part of it already, and I figured let me just react to this. Also below, I'm gonna leave a link. You can set up a free consultation with me. I'm an online fitness coach. But if you would like to set up a free consultation with me, just look below. I'm gonna leave a link. Also, it's gonna be a form for you to fill out. It's gonna be no information. I'll let you fill that out as well. But anyways, let's get to it. I thought this was interesting because any type could be a psychopath. Some people may think otherwise. They think maybe it's just thinkers or something like that, but really anybody could be. Really, the only difference would be if it's a filler. A filler would just use their feeling function to simulate emotions, I think. Because psychopaths and stuff, they fake emotions a lot, and they fake emotions. That's how they would use it. They're a psychopath, I say, in my opinion. But I'm not no professional, so. But let's get to it. Let's look at this room. This is very interesting.
Before we start, I should say that anyone can become a psychopath. So don't feel like I'm saying you can't become one. You can, okay? Positive mindset. Also, it might be the case that psychopathy is its own kind of personality type in some sense. After all, some of the typical traits don't align well naturally with certain personality types. That being said, I have done a series on the dark side of lots of the personality types, and I can assure you, there is indeed a road to darkness for everyone. Maybe that should be my tagline. Okay, let's start with ISTP. ISTPs are the stereotypical quiet person sitting in the corner who has already mapped out all of the escape routes and the most efficient way to murder everyone in the room. ISTPs love to do things well, to master skills if possible, to refine their understanding of things. Many of the things they enjoy in life, for want of a better phrase, don't really involve or need people. And more than that, people can often get in the way. So there are definitely routes that ISTPs could go down which bring them away from enjoying people, and even going as far as to be quite cynical about human nature. When it comes to psychopathy, I can definitely see it. The stereotype of an assassin who is simply focused on their craft and doesn't...
Yeah, to add to that, we tend to be like in fiction, we tend to be stereotyped as that guy. We just be skilled, super skilled, and then someone may hire us as a weapon or something like that. That's in fiction. I mean, I'm pretty sure it happens in real life because fiction is really just art is an imitation of life. So everything you see in fiction in some form is something that happens in real life. But it happens kind of like that. Like in fiction, you'll see ISTPs will get hired as assassins or something just because we so skilled. You know what I'm saying? We might get hired, just like how ENTJs in fiction, they tend to be the villains, the stereotypical supervillain and stuff. But yeah, that does happen. Anyways.
Concern themselves with the moral consequences, that kind of pure detachment they can have. I'm already kind of surprised by this one, but I think I'm going to go with likely for ISTPs.
Yeah.
Let's do
Yeah, it's not like sometimes people read descriptions and they think that we'd be the most likely. We're not. There's other types that are way more likely, and he's probably going to go into that in a minute, but we're not really that likely to be one, surprisingly. We're just not, because we had that low FE and we get overwhelmed with it. I think for some reason that hyper emotionalism that comes with FE makes it real hard for us to become one. I don't know. But like I said, ESTPs are way more likely to be one than us. Let's put it like that. I don't really think it's that common for us because, for one, we can go through a lot of things. It takes a lot for us to become evil, I think. But let's get back to it.
INFJ next. Well, this is an interesting one, which I say every time about INFJs. I've mentioned this idea a few times in other INFJ videos. There seems to be this reoccurring archetype or trope in fiction of an INFJ character, and I know it's not totally possible to type fictional characters, but of an INFJ character who is more powerful than the hero or the protagonist, but for some reason doesn't exercise their power. Sometimes it's revealed that this character has a dark past and that they sought power before, and disliked the corrupting effect of it?
Like I said with them, they like with them, they can be like angels or they could be really bad. It's kind of like there's no in between for INFJs. Usually they're really good, nice people, or they could just be really evil. But the thing is, if they're evil, you can't tell at first. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what all NI users, if they're evil, you can't really tell at first. They kind of can hide their intentions. I don't know. It's just something I've noticed if they are evil. But I don't think it's super likely for INFJ. It's just kind of like half and half, I say. But let's see what he says.
If those characters were less inclined to dislike it, then you have a very dangerous prospect indeed. I've seen people like Osama bin Laden and Hitler typed as INFJs. I don't really have an opinion on that since I haven't looked into them enough, but it's certainly possible. INFJs are very empathic, and there's a debate as to whether psychopaths have empathy, since there are different kinds. People have speculated that they might have cognitive empathy, which is not quite the same as the standard.
The thing is, though, they are, but they can also be unempathetic if they're unhealthy, I say. I think the unhealthy ones are unempathetic. They'll use their FE just to manipulate people. If they're crazy or unhealthy, you know what I mean? Of course, that's not a normal one. Let me just say that before y'all get offended. But only unhealthy ones are like that. They can be real cold. Like I said, when they're in the TI, also when they're in the TI-NI loop, they can be kind of cold and insensitive, which would be kind of out of character for them. But yeah.
Kind. Also, some people who are apparently famous psychopaths are probably misclassified. For example, if you're a sadist, then you need to have strong empathy, otherwise you wouldn't be able to enjoy it. So I've heard. I'm going to go with possible for INFJs. I mean, like I said at the start, it's possible for anyone, but it's fun to speculate on how each type's preferences and traits and cognitive functions might match up to things like being president, being a millionaire, being a psychopath. Okay, come to think of it, those three things might have surprisingly similar lists. Let's do ISFJ next. Well, my natural reaction is that ISFJs are going to be low down on this list. In the dark side of the ISFJ video, I tried to speculate on how these guys could turn bad. And the way I think this would happen is by them becoming too controlling or possessive. They love to care about people, obviously, but that can, under some circumstances, become kind of smothering. It's really hard to see the archetype of an ISFJ being similar to the archetype of what we understand about psychopaths. So I'm just going to go ahead and put them in highly unlikely.
Yeah, I can see that. They now with them, it takes quite a lot. They're probably the type that can throw through the most and not go crazy because of SI. I know C.S. Joseph talk about that a lot. ISFJ can endure anything. That's what he says. It's true. The thing is with them, they can reach a point where they just snap. I think if they go through things like just horrible things continuously, I think they can reach a point where they just snap and then they return to a serial killer. So, you know what I'm saying? That's what I heard somewhere. There was this like serial killer in a movie that people were saying was an ISFJ gone bad. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been like Jason or something, but that's really just that's where they go. It's completely different from where they are normally. It would take a lot for them to get to that point though. But yeah, highly unlikely. It just doesn't line up with them. Like I said, they probably can go through the most and not lose their mind out of all the types. Probably number one out of all 16. That SI, then that FE. Because they're stereotyped to be submissive, but they don't mean it in a way to where it's weak when they say that. What they really mean is they can accept anything that's thrown at them. They kind of can learn how to just accept things for the way they are, no matter how bad or how good it is. You know, that's just how they are. That's why they I would say that's a better way of describing than just saying they're submissive, because they really not necessarily. I don't know. It's really. I'll go into that later.
I don't think ISFJs have done so well in videos yet, but in some sense, the highly unlikely category is kind of the win in this one. Okay, let's do ENFJ next. They can be charm personified, and generally the more charming a person, the more suspicion they should be given. I can see a clear path for ENFJs to lean into this part of their personality and be ultra superficial, shape-shifting creatures. They really can be masters of the social realm. As I mentioned before, an ENFJ gone bad in my mind would be some smooth-talking politician who everyone loves but is clearly something more sinister underneath. They could also easily make great salespeople. In fact, there are almost certainly many great ENFJ salespeople out there. The kind that could convince you to buy a car that will break down after like 1 mile. Again, like INFJs, they're going to be the...
Yeah, I can see that. But, I mean, they're not the best. I think ESTPs are the best salespeople. Best, like, used car salesmen. You know what I'm saying? But, yeah, I can see that for them, too. For them, some of them kind of creep me out a little bit. Especially the unhealthy ones, they can creep me out a little bit. Some of them are unhealthy. Like some of the unhealthy ones can they just creep me out because you know with the FE and I mean it's part of it because I got low FE, but also I can see I guess kind of through the BS if one of them is ill, that like that they can kind of like with INFJ it can kind of go either way with them kind of like any other type, but
good guys most of the time. They definitely warrant a place alongside their INFJ brethren. Impossible.
Yeah,
why do I feel like I've said the word brethren in all of these videos? What does that word even mean? Okay, let's do ENTP next. In some ways, ENTPs are like the archetypical friendly psychopaths of the world. To be honest, I think this aspect of their personality might be a little bit overplayed, since they do tend to secretly seek harmony, and in my experience, spend quite a lot of effort trying to do the best for the people.
ENTPs are one of the most likely, I say. That's probably going to go at the top. Them and ESTPs are two most likely. But let's see.
In their life. Strangely, I think it's their openness to many aspects of life in general. It's not the fact that they are exclusively devil's advocates, it's that they're advocates for everyone's opinion, which, by definition, happens to include the devil. Having blind spot introverted feeling means they're going to be out of touch with their individual feelings and values on things, which can definitely make them quite detached. I think there's a Michael Pierce video where he says that ENTPs seem to enjoy life without ever being particularly attached to it, which is an odd but accurate description for lots of ENTPs. They can certainly treat life like it's a game or a playground for exploration. They can also be impulsive like the SE DOMs. The question here is whether they are likely or highly likely. I think I'm going to put them in likely for now, but I might change my mind. They can be pretty nerdy and intellectual in their pursuits and desires, and can easily be in the...
I think they're a little higher. I would put them a little higher if it was me, but...
crazy professor mode. They're equally likely to seek knowledge, as opposed to thrills, though. Let's do ESTP next. ESTPs kind of strike me as the archetypical psychopathic type. A dark ESTP is going to be impulsive, reckless, sensation.
I think I knew one. I think I knew a psychopath ESTP. They can be pretty bad. Well... I'm just talking about the unhealthy ones, of course. Like I'm trying to make that clear. I don't want y'all going around judging people that are ESTPs because most of them are not going to be like that. But I think I knew one. He used to do stuff to animals. Like when we were kids, he used to do stuff to animals. He was really he used to torture animals and stuff. He was also a bully. He used to, I don't know. I'm not going to go into that because he passed away. So rest in peace. Because I think he did kind of get it together before he passed, but yeah. Moving on.
Seeking, doesn't plan for the long term, glibness or superficial charm. I mean, third slot extroverted feeling could do that very well, and ENTPs have that too. Okay, let's bump these guys up. Back to ESTPs. Strangely, prioritizing the immediacy of the moment is portrayed as a virtue when it comes to things like mindfulness, meditation, avoiding anxiety, and funnily enough, living purely in the present moment is a highly psychopathic trait, one which they are known for. It's also interesting to note how ESTPs use introverted thinking.
Yeah, speaking of that, high SC when it's unhealthy can be violent. That's like high SC when it's unhealthy. Or if somebody is like INTJ or INFJ and they got low SC. Because sometimes when somebody's like crazy, I think it comes out in the bottom functions. Like their last function, sometimes it can manifest like I don't really know the ins and outs like that. I'm just kind of talking about some of my observations, so take that with a grain of salt. But I'll tell you, unhealthy SE is violent. Let's put it like that. You'll see like unhealthy SEs will be, a little more on the violent side, but a healthy one is like the opposite,
tool for them, a means to an end as opposed to the end in itself. In my mind, that lends itself very well to being successful con artists. I guess this is an easy one, highly likely for ESTPs. Okay, let's look at ESFJs next. My initial reaction is that I don't see why they would differ that much from ENFJs. They have the ability to be charming and do the social schmoozing, They have blind spot NI, which can make them bad long-term planners in a lot of ways. That is something that didn't initially occur to me, but that could make them quite in the moment as well, and focused on the concrete things that are right in front of them. This is quite a strange one. There's just something about certain combinations of traits that seem to line up well in these ranking videos. I can just picture a charming, witty, seemingly warm, seemingly caring ESFJ, someone who would serve you with an exquisitely cooked version of your favorite meal that happened to be laced with poison. I'm not sure that I have good enough reason.
If that was Psychopath, they'd probably be like stalking you and stuff. Like, the thing is, SFJ, also ISFJs, SFJs are good at stalking people. They really are. That's like one of their gifts. Like, they would make really good detectives. You know what I'm saying? They're good at stalking people because they kind of do watch over people just to, I don't know, see how they feeling and what they need. They kind of can, yeah, they would make really good detectives. I'm not saying they're the only type that does, but that's one underrated thing about SFJs. They're really good at stalking people.
Reasons to back this one up, so I'm going to put them in possible. Let's look at ISFP next. Now, my assumption is that ESFPs will be high on this list. So let's see how much of a big difference changing those functions around only slightly can make. Okay, so ISFPs surprisingly do have certain elements here. The desire to be untied down by things, not always being the best organizers, definitely capable of being impulsive, making decisions in the moment, purely based on whatever desire seems to grab them. Having blind spot any might make them much...
I think for them, if they were psychopaths, it would be a thing where they would just be selfish, like really selfish, and like, yeah, impulsive and selfish. That's how it would go probably for them. It'll just be about what they want. They wouldn't really care about anybody else. I think if they were, you know, but I don't think it's likely. They're probably gonna go on the unlikely or. Yeah, I don't think it's very likely.
Much less prone to worrying about all the possibilities that could happen. As the saying goes, we suffer more in imagination than reality. And one of the things psychopaths do well in terms of avoiding anxiety is simply not to dwell on the past or spend time worrying about anything other than what's right in front of you. Putting ISFPs high up would be slightly controversial, I think. This seems like a really strange video to talk about ISFP misconceptions, but there are a few things that stand out to me. One is the level of fieriness and intensity they're capable of. As I've said in one of these ranking videos before, they're not always meek and mild.
They seem meek and mild. That's one thing I need to talk about in another video, but they got this thing about them where they can be real calm and just most gentle people to be around, but when they're in action, their intensity goes like, they are some of the most intense, probably one of the most intense types when they're in that doing something they're passionate about. Like they've been described as like the quiet and shy person that comes alive on stage. Like, it's such a huge difference. Like, you'd be surprised. Also, like, I've known some, they were like real shy and quiet, real like just gentle, nice people, but like they like to dance in the club. When they get in the club or something, they dance or, you know, stuff like that. It's kind of it's very surprising, let's put it like that. Or if they're playing sports, they're real intense. For example, like a Derrick Rose. You see him, he's real quiet, shy and quiet, but you see how he plays. He is super like quick and agile and stuff like that. You know, that's just one example.
Another is the physical presence they have. They often make excellent sports people. Also, they can be low-key thrill seekers and adrenaline junkies, more than willing to take some physical risks. That is pointing me to putting them definitely impossible. Could they even be higher? It might make sense that all of the high SE types are going to be towards the top. Okay, I'll go with the controversial one. I do think that ISFPs, very surprisingly, have a function stack that is not at odds with many psychopathic traits. So I'm going to put them next to ISTPs. I find it...
That's fair, because that SE, I think I guess the SPs are going to be up kind of higher. Yeah, you can say that.
Interesting that my mental image of ISFPs would put them in highly unlikely, yet on paper, there's nothing that stops them being likely. I wonder why that is. If anyone has any theory, then please let me know below. And if you are yourself an ISFP psychopath, then please don't hurt me for not putting you at the very top. I think ENFPs along with ENTPs can fall into the Joker-esque archetype of being chaos monkeys or revolutionaries who might be making a deep point about the flaws of society and human nature, or might just be out to have some fun by shaking things up. They can definitely wheel out the charm when needed, and are more than capable of being adaptable social chameleons. A dark ENFP can certainly use their skill set in a sinister way. I've also mentioned that ENFPs tend...
Man, they can be cold-hearted. When they're unhealthy, they're very cold-hearted. You'd be surprised. I think they're going to be pretty likely. It's one of those things you wouldn't expect, but for their unhealthy one is very... I think a lot of them can be psychopaths. That's like one of the feeling types that can... I think they're one of the top. If you want to talk about all the feeling type, they're probably up there. Because they'll be kind of... I don't know how to... I'm trying to think of how to describe it. But I think they're high. I think they're high on the list. They can be ruthless. I'm telling you. ENFPs can be ruthless.
To have a noticeable light and dark side. But to be honest, it's rarely a dark side that is destructive to other people, more so themselves, if anything. They can be extremely charismatic and make excellent leaders, even cult leaders. I think I've seen Charles Manson typed as an ENFP. Okay, ENFPs need to go in possible.
I mean, I've seen that too. They are up, but I think I would put them a little higher than that, to be honest with you. I don't know if I agree with that one. It's just one of those ones you wouldn't expect, I say. Because they can really have like a real, of course, this is like, I'm using extremes, okay? I'm not talking about your regular, but it could be high on that spectrum, like of just,
they have certain capabilities and traits that are undeniably dangerous should they wish to misuse them. Please don't misuse them, ENFPs. Let's have a look at ISTJ. Kind of similar to the ESTJs here. A dark ISTJ is going to be prioritizing the system, structure, or establishment over the individual. I've been watching The Crown recently on Netflix, which I'd recommend, and the Queen is often typed as an ISTJ.
ISTJs, man, they were psychopaths. That'd be kind of scary. Well, I wouldn't say that would be pretty tough to deal with. Let's put it like that. I wouldn't say it's scary, but that'd be tough to deal with if they were psychopaths because of how like disciplined they are and stuff. They will follow through with a plan. They got a plan to do something. I don't know, kill somebody. I think they're probably more likely to be a sociopath, if anything. But I don't think they would be that likely. They're probably kind of closer to the bottom. But if they were one, that'd be tough to deal with.
Which definitely fits for her. This is obviously a creative decision on the part of the writers, but she's often portrayed as being very cold and detached, preferring to uphold the duty of her role and maintain the integrity of the crown, versus siding with the individual concerns and needs of people around her, even people in her own family. I'm not saying the Queen is a psychopath, but, you know, it is the UK. How likely are ISTJs to go down this dark route? They have blind spot FE, which is going to make them pretty blunt and even cold sometimes, but they also have third slot FI, which ironically will make them quite individual in their values and beliefs. They have to be less likely than ESTJs, but I think I still want to put them in likely. Okay, let's do ENTJs next. I mean, all of the same reasons as ESTJs, but probably...
I think they're probably more likely to be a sociopath than so. Matter of fact, good example of that, I say P. Diddy he's an ENTJ. A lot of people are saying he's a psychopath. I think he's a good example. But most ENTJs are not that bad, though. You know, he's like he almost is like a supervillain in real life, though. It's kind of funny. But that's kind of what I was talking about. A lot of them in fiction, they're the supervillains in fiction for some reason. They just make really good ones. Doesn't mean that a lot of them most in real life are like the opposite. They're real nice people in real life, but
with a few more thrown in there as well. Whereas an ESTJ might see themselves as doing their duty, an ENTJ might make up their own plan or vision and see that as more than enough justification to take action. The image I have in my mind is simply of a dictator, someone who's Napoleon-esque, a strong leader who seems very appealing, but someone whose ambition and power-hungry nature might be endless and therefore dangerous. No surprises with putting ENTJs in the highly likely category. Let's do INTP next. Like a few of the other types, the image of INTPs is
like Jeffrey Dahmer. I've heard people say he wasn't a psychopath. You know, he was killed. I think they were saying like he was something else wrong with him. But then I hear other people say that he's a psychopath. These have come from like just random counselors and stuff, you know. Like it's not coming from me. But I heard a little everything. I don't really know. I'm not a counselor or nothing like that, so I don't know. Somebody if you know, tell me. I'm curious. But he's an INTP, you know.
being cold comes from the detachment they often experience. It's hard to equate the function of TI to logic. Maybe it's more a representation of the extent to which a person wants to align themselves with logic. People sometimes confuse being logical with being unemotional or uncaring, which I think is a big mistake actually. Logic can often be a critique of how to go about something as opposed to telling people what they ought to be going.
They're really compassionate people despite them being very logical. So, yeah. But they probably going to go on the same slide as ours for this one, I guarantee you. We'll see what he says.
About. And often INTPs will critique your thinking processes as opposed to your underlying beliefs. I mean, they'll criticize those too, but they care more about people correctly identifying the logical implications of their beliefs as opposed to going around trying to change them. I must say, in my experience, INTPs appear to be much colder than they actually are. And as a result, I want to put them in possible, which might be lower than where other people would have put them. Okay, let's do ESTJ next. ESTJs, everyone's favorite.
If it was me, I'd put him in likely, but like I said, I think it would take quite a lot for him to go down that path. They're pretty decent people, and they also really slow. I think they'd be really slow to like. I always want to say slower to anger, but not. Well, yeah, I guess they are. Yeah. Right, let's keep going.
Psychopathic line manager. I think ESTJs fall into the lawful evil alignment most of the time when I've seen people classifying them, and that's their number one route.
ESTJs, they're as bad as whoever's in charge of them. That's what all SJs. All SJs, they're as bad as whoever's in charge of them a lot of times. ECJs are like the middle man, like they're in charge, but somebody else is above them giving them orders on what to execute. So, yeah.
To the dark side. I've actually seen Darth Vader be typed as an ESTJ, and to be honest, it does kind of fit. The most terrifying thing about the character, in my view, is that he's so businessman-like in his approach to universal domination.
That's a good typing. I've heard ISTJ or ESTJ. That's a good one. Oops.
Ticking things off his malevolent to-do list. A phrase I can imagine an ESTJ saying is, I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to get the job done. And for both ESTJs and ENTJs, at their absolute worst, they're going to make everyone else subservient to the goal they're trying to reach, or boxes that need to be checked. I think a person working under a psychopathic ESTJ are going to feel dehumanized. Maybe I should make a 16 personalities as heroes or something to make up for this one. I'm going to have to put ESTJs in the highly likely category. I debated whether I should remove one of these categories at the start, like I did for the last video, and there is a conspicuously empty category there. Let's see if we can move one down from possible to unlikely. Okay, I think I'll move ESFJs down. I also feel strangely compelled to move INTPs down as well, which is ironic because I think most people would have them high on this list. It's funny because so often INTPs will come across as detached and cold, and even psychopathic in their mindset. But like I said, I think that's a misreading of it. The philosophy of let reason alone decide is, like every other philosophy, going to give rise to moments where
INTJ, they probably can go pretty high. I'm just say that right now. Maybe likely, or even highly likely. We'll see. We'll see what he say.
Seemingly harsh decisions need to be made, but there almost always is some kind of utilitarian view where those hard choices are for the greatest good. Let's leave it as it is for now. Okay, so ESFP next. Just like the ESTPs, they'll have all of the impulsiveness and the sensation-seeking tendencies. They're more than capable of living life in a swashbuckling, adaptable, and nomadic way, rolling into town, causing trouble, then moving on to the next place. I should have done these right next to ESTPs because they have all of the same reasons. They're in the moment, less concerned with long-term planning, and instead want to focus on squeezing all of the pleasure out of the present. Capable of charm, charisma, maneuvering their way around people pretty easily. I think this is just a open and shut. Highly likely. Okay, INFP. That ISFP choice still feels very weird to me, not least because I'm expecting INFPs to be low down on this list. INFPs have SE as their...
I got lost for a second. You were talking about ESFP. Okay. Yeah, I can see them being kind of like they can be kind of. It's like one of those things too. They also you wouldn't be able to tell at first. They would trick you real well. I think for them, if they were one, they would know how to fake emotions real well. Because that FI, and then also just be pleasure seeking, super pleasure seeking. And if they were one, they would find pleasure in like killing people, whatever, violence, something like that. I can see that being true.
their blind spot function, which means that they aren't going to be as sensation seeking as ISFPs. They tend to be a bit more pondering and in their heads. It's kind of hard for me to even picture an INFP psychopath, to be honest. Maybe some serial killer who's really artistic with their crime scenes. One thing that psychopaths and narcissists do that is often not obvious is that they portray themselves as victims. We tend to picture them as being the perpetrator of something very overt, but the fact that most people can have their heartstrings pulled pretty easily means that they'll make use of that sympathy. In fact, I remember in the book The Wisdom of Psychopaths, there was some interview or conversation the author was having, and the person who had been classified as
also too INFPs, they're kind of like ENFPs with that. I think they could be really ruthless at their worst. They could be like super ruthless, surprisingly ruthless. But like you wouldn't expect it from them. I think they're up there. But I can see them being pretty high.
is detached and cold, and even psychopathic in their minds. All of the pleasure. I remember in the book The Wisdom of Psychopaths, there was some interview or conversation the author was having, and the person who had been classified as having antisocial personality disorder actually said that taking advantage of sympathy from others was one of his most potent weapons, which is quite a scary thought. So maybe you could have a sweet INFP who everyone wants to look after and take care of, but in reality, they're actually playing everyone. I mean, it's possible, but I still don't think that's likely. So I think I'm going to go with highly unlikely. Okay, finally, INTJs. Literally the archetypical evil mastermind, super...
I would agree with that one, personally, but he could be right. Maybe I need to interact with more of them, because it's been a while since I interacted with one for sure. But yeah.
Villain. Schemers, plotters, Machiavellian machinations for days. I can picture them sitting in their lairs, sipping on the blood of their fallen enemies, watching their meticulously crafted plan fall into place. But is there a different take? I mean, for every INTJ villain, there is going to be an INTJ hero. Well, often misunderstood hero or anti-hero. Generally, INTJs want things to be improved, and by definition that means making things better for everyone. Psychopaths are actually quite boring in many ways because they're kind of like a different species to humans, just with a human suit on. The most interesting characters, or even real-life people sometimes, are the ones who have one foot in the dark side, but never fully step over into it. I think to honour the trope and stereotype, I'm going to put them high up, but I'm going to put them in likely as opposed to highly likely. So as you can see...
Yeah. I would have put them in highly likely though, because they can be pretty bad. They kind of, they're villains as fiction too. Them and ENFJ, they're two main villains usually in fiction. Oopsie.
Likely to be psychopathic. There are two implications of this. Firstly, I'm clearly hanging around with a bad crowd of people. And secondly, that makes no mathematical sense. But then again, it's 2020, so, sense is not really in at the moment. I think it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 25. And I don't know if anyone's done any analysis on the types and psychopathy. My gut instinct is that there is probably not much correlation. Not because certain types functions don't match up very well with psychopathy, but that either being
Okay, that's it for that. So let me get my take on it. I think pretty much there's a psychopath for every, like, you're going to talk about like going to history and talking about all the, evil killers and stuff. There's one for every type, at least. There was somebody who made a list of one for every type, just kind of to humble everybody so nobody would think, oh, my type's perfect or nothing. But there's one for everyone. If I had enough time to go and look, I think I would definitely be able to find one for everyone. But it's interesting. It's just interesting looking at the dark side of all of them, so make sure y'all go check out Love Lou. He's pretty legit. I watch him here and there. I don't watch him all, I haven't seen all the videos, but from what I've seen, he's pretty legit. Make sure y'all go check him out. But anyways, that's it for right now. Thanks.